Evening, everyone, and welcome to Blue Sunday on this Monday, Easter Monday 2022. Vince Loccisano with you, joined tonight initially by the one and only Mr. Chris Beach. G'day, Beachy. Great to see you, and thanks very much for coming in and saving us again tonight. We will have Steve Katib joining us at some point during the show. He just has a commitment that prevents him from being able to come on right at the start, but he will be joining us at some point throughout the evening, and looking forward to having a chat with Steve. But in the meantime, Chris, it's terrific to have you in the chair, in the bat cave there, and controlling things from back there. And you and I will have to be Batman and Robin tonight, so I'll let you control things there in Gotham City. You've got that beautiful big library behind you as usual.
No, thank you.
Chris, we've got our smiles on our faces, and I guess that's because our beloved team, the Carlton Football Club, sit nicely in sixth position on the ladder on 4 wins from 5 games. And even though there were times yesterday that our hearts were in our mouths and we probably, dreaded losing a game that we should easily have won once we got 50 points up in the second quarter. I guess winners are grinners and losers can please themselves, and we still ended up on the right side of the ledger. So a memorable win yesterday, even though we somehow found a way to make it difficult for ourselves.
Yes, indeed, Vince.
Were you there at the game, or did you watch it?
I was there. I was part of the 30,000 plus strong that was part of that crowd, and I must admit at some point it felt like there was going to be more than that there, because it got very tense in the last 5 minutes. Port Adelaide, credit to them, they were coming hard at us, and we knew we were going to be getting that at some point, although being 50 points up at one point at halftime, I've got to be honest, Vince, we were all thinking, how much buy are we going to be doing the job on them? But we're Carlton supporters, and sometimes nothing comes easy to us.
We can get a bit ahead of ourselves at times, can't we, us Carlton supporters?
Absolutely.
Mind you, we probably had every reason to think that, because let's face it, that first half was a scintillating first half, and we kicked 6 goals in both quarters, and Port Adelaide kicked 2 goals in both quarters. And it didn't seem to matter what they did and what they tried. They just weren't able to stop our run and carry. And we were transitioning the ball really well from defence into attack. And obviously Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay were getting plenty of it, kicking lots of goals. And, I guess with a very healthy 49-point lead at half-time, you'd have been forgiven for thinking, well, if we can repeat this, we might win by somewhere near 100 points, but didn't quite go like that, did it? Now, how do you sum up the game? Let's give us a summary of, if you like, quarter by quarter. What did you think?
Okay, so
of course I should probably repeat the final score for those who have been somewhere else on planet Earth. I think Carlton ended up kicking 14 goals, 10-94 to Port Adelaide's 13-91. Now, the quarter-by-quarter scores, Carlton was 6-4 to 2-3 at quarter time, 12 goals 6 to 4 goals 5 at half time, and that's a 49-point lead after leading by 25 points at quarter time. Then we only kicked the 1 goal 2 to Port Adelaide's 6 goals 4 in the third quarter. That's only 8 points versus their 40. So it got back to a 17-point lead at three-quarter time. And in the end, we were good enough to hold on. We only kicked the 1 goal 2 in the last, but that 1 goal was a crucial one to Charlie Curnow.
Yes.
And they kicked 3 goals 4. They had a lot of opportunities to probably do better than 3 goals 4, I would have thought, but weren't quite good enough. So they fell short by 3 points, 14-10, 94 to 13-13, 91.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, so give us your summary of the game, Chris.
So the headline, certainly, Ben. So the first thing I'm going to say is the headline is, it was a tale of two halves. All right. The first half, first quarter. So we'll start with the first quarter, because obviously perfect. We were right up in their face. We were locking in tackles. We were shutting them down at every opportunity. When Peter was tapping it down, it was either Walsh, Hewitt, or Chera roaming that tap. And one of them was usually getting it, which then left it to the forwards to say, like, Charlie for the first goal, obviously yesterday, or Mackay. It was one of those. Second quarter, more of the same. Peter putting the pressure on Sam Hayes. Inexperienced ruckman was Sam Hayes. His debut game, cauldron of fire. But again, normal service. Robbie Gray been very quiet to this point, and usually someone for Port that does damage against us one way or another. Third quarter, that's when they started to make some adjustments and was able to shut us down. But what we've been doing for the first half, they were starting to do it to us, and someone like Robbie Gray was kicking into gear. Again, like I said, he's a player that does damage against us week in, week out when we play Port, if he plays. Fourth quarter, well, you and I were talking about this off air, Vince. I mean, we were up against it. We were up against the wall, and critical marks and critical moments were being taken by Lewis Young, number 33, Matthew Cottrell, number 46. And within
a lot of the lesser lights really stood up, didn't they?
Yeah, and in the last minute as well, Big H, who kicked 3 goals himself, 3 goals, 1 to be in fact, they were very important marks to take, because had we not taken those marks, the result's different.
Yes, absolutely. Well, yeah, that's a pretty good summary of the game. I've got to tell you. By the way, we've got a comment up there, have we? We've got a couple of people.
Rocco.
We've got Rocco from the
Rocco's
Jumper Punch. G'day, guys. I'll sum up the second half. Monkey cuts. For those of you who don't understand Italian, that's when someone says "market cuts." In other words, what the hell? Well, you could use a different word than hell,
yes,
if you like. But good evening to Lana, who's tuned in. And anyone else who wants to tune in and pass a comment, feel free to do so. I should have mentioned that at the start, either on our YouTube channel, which is called In the Blue Corner, and you'll come up with this show being broadcast live on YouTube right now, or otherwise on our Facebook page, In the Blue Corner, and go to our group page, and you can leave a comment there as well, or ask a question, whatever you like. Great to see Rocco and Lana tuning in. Yes, the second half was a bit of a what the hell happened there. I've got to say, Beachy, I'm starting to wonder whether Michael Voss is questioning himself as to whether he should just shut up at halftime and not say anything, because our second halves, especially in the last, from what I can remember, the last 4 weeks at least, maybe all 5 weeks, have been pretty ordinary. Especially our third quarters have been very, very substandard in terms of results. In fact, if you just bear with me for a second, what I'm going to do is show you something, which, well, when I say show you something, I can't really show it to you, but I can bring it up. I've just got to find it. Here we go. I'm going to provide you with some statistics on our third quarters. And
so I think I might have seen this, but there are people that probably
Carlton's third quarters this season, okay?
Yep.
Round 1 against Richmond. This is our third quarters. Whether we're in front or behind, this is what we've done. Round 1, 2 goals 3 to Richmond's 6 goals 2.
Yep.
In round 2 against the Western Bulldogs, 2 goals 1 to 4 goals 2. Round 3 against Hawthorn, 1 goal 1 to 3 goals 2. Round 4 against the Gold Coast, 1 goal 4 to 5 goals 3. And then yesterday against Port Adelaide, 1 goal 2 to 6 goals 4. That's an overall tally of our third quarters, 5 of them this year so far. In 5 third quarters, we've kicked 7 goals 11, 53 to 24 goals 13, 157. Yes. We've been outscored by over 100 points in 5 games in the third quarter. That's not a good trend.
No, it's not. It's not.
Something's got to be done about that.
It's not a good trend. We're very agreed on that. However, the game style, as much of it as it is effective, can be just as ineffective if we are not focusing for 4 quarters. It's all well and good to be switched on for the first half. Okay, we're very much clear on that. But if you're not switched on for 4 quarters, the likes of your Melbournes will smash you without any hesitation. Now, fortunately, we don't face them until the second last round. So we've got plenty of time for that to be cleared. But you're right. We have to clean that up.
Yes, there's still plenty for Michael Voss and his coaching team to work on, isn't there? I mean, the good thing is that we are still winning matches, and I think we should celebrate that because the Carlton of old would have found ways to lose matches like yesterday and the one against Hawthorn 2 weeks earlier, but we still found a way to win even though the tide was turning severely against us. And I think that that's something we should be grateful for and something that we should acknowledge the team for being able to find a way by hook or by crook to get over the line. And those 1 point win against Hawthorn 2 weeks ago and the 3-point win yesterday against Port Adelaide, you swing those around the other way and we're sitting at 2 and 3. And we're outside the 8 and we're no different to the teams that are all outside the 8 now, like Collingwood, Gold Coast, etc., that are all sitting on 2 wins. So we're sitting on 4 wins out of 5 matches. We can still take our lessons from those. We can still learn by our mistakes and learn from what didn't go right in things like the third quarter. But at least we're still learning with a W next to our name on that particular round. And I think it all comes down to wins and losses in the end. So let's bank the 4 points every time we can and move on and hopefully improve next game.
Absolutely.
And we will need to improve next week against Fremantle because they are travelling very well and they're playing at home over there in Perth. So we're going to have to be on our best behaviour, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. And like I was saying to you off air, Vince, we've won our last 4 against the Dockers. But it's a new season. They're sitting second at the moment, and they're coming off a big win against Essendon. So we need to be on our guard and turn up like we usually do, but show up for 4 quarters. There's one thing that's always guaranteed, and that's us. We're always going to show up, and the WA faithful, the likes of Johnny Allen and all that, they're going to show up in the stands week in, week out, because the next biggest base is out in Perth. And we know that we're going to give the Freo crowd a run for their money.
Well, there's no doubt about our West Australian-based supporters. There are many of them. Let me assure you of that. I've been to Perth a number of times to watch Carlton and even host their pre-match functions, which are always really worth attending. They're fantastic functions. The WA Blues, which is the name they give themselves, that's the Carlton supporter group WA, if you like. They run a fantastic function over there. And there are literally thousands of Carlton supporters who are based in Perth and in parts of Western Australia. And that really dates back to the days of, when Kenny Hunter and Peter Bosustow came over in the early 80s to Carlton and guys like Mike Fitzpatrick. And, of course, subsequent to them, we've seen Wayne Blackwell and John Dorotich and guys like that come over from WA. So we've got a great history in recruiting players, some of the best players that came out of WA. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of Perth-based people love Carlton because a lot of their favourite players came over to play for us. So anyway, let's hope that they do come out in their thousands next week. I'm sure they will, seeing we've got off to such a good start. And they'll be cheering for Carlton and making a lot of noise when we kick goals, let me assure you of that.
Yes, exactly.
Now, let's just go back over yesterday's game a little bit more in detail. Who would you have given your votes to, Beachy? Who would you give your 3, 2 and 1 to?
Tell you what, Vince, it was a difficult decision just looking over the stats.
Let's just say you were one of the umpires. You've got to give your 3, 2 and 1 for the Brownlow.
Yeah, fair enough. Well,
let's just use Carlton players only, of course. We're not worried about the Port Adelaide ones.
I'm just going back over the stats as a refresher. Charlie Curnow, I believe, will have the 3 for kicking 5 goals, 15 touches, 14 of them kicks. Now, including that 5th one, which was a late goal and crucial goal to get us back up to a 2-kick game. Sam Walsh, number 18, of course, Charlie Curnow number 30. Sam Walsh, number 18, 38 touches, 12 kicks, 26 handballs, 3 marks, 6 tackles. And I'm going to give the number 1 to someone who I would say has probably been our best recruit in the modern football game for us, and that is number 29, George Hewitt. 33 touches, 10 kicks, 23 handballs, and he might not be giving you enough. He might not be giving you everything. He might not be giving you. You know what I'm trying to say? That he's one of those players that is giving you week in, week out effort.
Yes, absolutely he is, yes. And I think almost on that alone, you sort of tend to go for him because he's so consistent. If you had to toss up between him and someone else for the 1 vote, you'd say, well, look, this guy probably deserves it because he's so consistent from week to week. Yes, I go along with that. In fact, I agree with you entirely. I actually had exactly the same players in exactly the same order. So I'm glad we agree.
There you go.
I thought Curnow, you could have given it to Walsh. He had 38 possessions, although, more than 2/3 of them were hand passes, which I always tend to view that with a little bit of cynicism. When someone's got 12 kicks and 26 hand passes, I just think to myself, you can't possibly have as much impact as someone who had the same amount of possessions but had 26 kicks and 12 hand passes. Because surely the meters gained and that sort of thing would have been a lot more impactful. But I think it's great to see Sam get nearly 40 possessions, and I think that's his best game since coming back. He has been, getting his fair share of the ball in the other matches, but I just felt like he hadn't been impacting the game that much. And I think while it wasn't an absolutely dominant performance yesterday, I think he just had so much of the ball that you'd have to say that was the most impactful game that he's played this year. Yeah. And yes, he certainly deserves to be in the votes. I thought Curnow had the most impact on the game. He kicked our first goal of the game. He kicked the last goal of the first quarter to put us up to 6 goals to 2. And he kicked the last goal of the game for us, which was a crucial goal in that last quarter that gave us a lead of 9 points again. So, after Port Adelaide got to within 3 points. So they then had to kick another one plus another one to get in front of us. And I think that crucial goal in the last quarter is what got us over the line. So I thought he had the most impact on the game for us. Charlie Curnow, 3 votes. Sam Walsh, 2. And for all the reasons that you said, George Hewitt, again, 10 kicks, 23 hand passes. So, again, more than 2/3 of his possessions were hand passes, but really hard worker in and under. I was tossing up between him and funnily enough, Harry Mackay. I thought Mackay was crucial to us. He had 18 possessions yesterday, which is quite a lot for a full forward. Kicked 3 goals, worked up the ground, took marks when we needed them, impacted packs, and even had 3 hit-outs in the ruck. So, he was probably stiff not to get a vote, but I went for George Hewitt in the end. Yeah. So they're my 3, 2 and 1.
Perfect. And Lana,
what about the players that disappointed you yesterday, Beachy? Who were the ones that you felt would be disappointed in their own game and would probably be, feeling a bit nervous heading into this next game against Fremantle as to whether they keep their spot or not?
Okay, well, before I touch on that, Lana gave her votes as well. She's pretty much gone with what we have, but
she's gone for Hewitt.
You went Hewitt 3, Charlie 2, Walshy 1.
So same 3 in different order.
Yep. Okay, so who's on?
Did Lana put up another comment before, by the way, that I missed? I think you might have put up another comment.
She basically mentioned about how good our WA supporters are.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Pillage WASA in our heyday.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lana, for your contributions there. You're absolutely right. Our South Australian supporters are also very, very passionate. And again, you'd have to say that probably stems from the recruiting of players like Kernahan and Bradley and Motley, and, of course, Mark Nailey the year after that. Camporeale in our premiership year, 1995, he came over and played in the premiership in his first year. So Andrew McKay, of course, is another South Australian that came to Carlton. Yes. So we've had a lot of reasons to get massive support from those two states.
Exactly.
All right, so... Sorry, go on.
We'll be in SA later in the season as well. But
yes, of course. We play Adelaide Crows there. So we've played Port Adelaide. We don't play them again for the year.
Nope, that's it. So who is on shaky ground, do I reckon?
Keeping in mind Paddy Dow was the medical sub and he never got on the ground.
Yes, exactly. So we leave him alone because he never got on the ground, technically, even though he was named as medical sub.
Yep.
You know what? I'm not entirely sure. I could say always. I mean, he had 6 disposals, all of them kicks. Yep. And there was 2 marks. But the thing that may save him is his tackling.
I was just going to say, the disappointing thing about the week before against Gold Coast is that I believe we only had 2 tackles inside 50 for the entire game. Now, for Matthew Owies to lay 5 tackles on his own, you'd have to assume that a lot of those, if not most of them, if not all of them, would have been inside 50.
Yeah.
So you make a good point. Maybe his forward pressure in trying to keep that ball within that forward 50 region by tackling the way he has, that might save him.
Yeah. Or they were either inside 50 or just on the edge of 50 because he was usually in and around the 50-metre arc.
Yeah.
Now, he might not have hit the scoreboard, which is important, but the tackling around 50 is what may save him.
Yep. Whereas what about his little compatriot there in the forward pocket, young Durden? He did a little bit more, you'd say.
Yes, he did. He kicked a goal, which is important. 8 touches.
And it was a great little goal too, just quietly.
Absolutely. Durden had 8 touches, 5 of them kicks, 3 handballs, 2 marks, and 3 of them were tackles as well. So, they are a little modern mosquito fleet, possibly. It's probably a little bit too early to call this early in the season.
Yeah.
But if they continue to be consistent, it's my opinion that they'll be pushing for that mosquito fleet tag in the forward line.
Okay, so you think Owies might be on shaky ground but not Durden? Is that right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Any others?
Well, Alana here is saying Setters was average. Let me just see what he did.
Well, I can tell you he had 18 possessions, 10 kicks and 8 hand passes. He took 6 marks and laid 2 tackles. Kicked a point which should have been a goal. Do you know that left foot kick for goal was 8 metres out, and he happened to kick the ball into the Carlton player's back in the goal square, and then it went through for a touch behind. But I mean, that's just a total waste, isn't it? Really, I mean, that's just such a, I guess, a careless kick. I mean, you've got to take a bit more care than that when you're only 8 metres out from the goals. And you're on your left foot. Admittedly, you're on your wrong foot, but gee whiz, you should be able to kick that through.
it shouldn't matter if you're 8 metres out or 10 metres out for that matter. I mean, you've got to at least observe your surroundings. So, let's just...
So that's a good point. Yes, Setterfield might be under the microscope. Any others? I've got a couple that I'm happy to share with you.
That's
and they might be a little different to you, but I'm happy to wait till you're finished. No, I'll wait till you're finished.
Oh, okay. So always, I don't think there's that much else to say. I mean, you could say Young, but he had a crucial mark late.
No, I thought Young actually played a reasonable game.
Yeah,
I think he did some really nice things at crucial times, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm actually agreeing. I'm just saying you could say him, but he had a crucial mark.
I would have thought Luke Parks would have been a little disappointed with only having 7 possessions and a couple of marks. Like he did okay, but I think he can do better. Now they might give him another game to show his wares. They might give him another game because, of course, first game back for a long, long time. So maybe he needs to be given that opportunity. But he'd have to be at least talked about, I would have thought, around the selection table.
Yep.
I'm going to put forward another couple of names that I thought were a bit average yesterday.
Go.
One of them is Nick Newman.
Okay, yep. 12 touches, 8 kicks.
I thought he just lacked any impact at all on the game. Now, you might say he doesn't have to impact the game from half back, but I just felt that he was struggling. I just don't think he got the ball enough. Okay. And the other one, and you might be surprised at this, because he kicked a couple of goals in the first quarter, but he does what he always does. He kicks a couple of goals, does his little flashy things, which he roved the pack one or two times. He didn't do anything that was tough. It was just purely skillful reading of the play and snapping around his body. He kicked 2 goals, but then he did very, very little, if you ask me, and that's Jack Martin.
Yep. I thought you were going there.
Honestly, I know that they're not going to drop him because he kicked a couple of goals and he got 17 possessions in the end. But seriously, after those couple of goals in the first quarter, I can barely remember him doing anything after that. Can you?
Well,
anything that was meaningful?
I mean, not off the top of my head, but looking at his stats, 17 touches, 9 kicks, 8 handballs, 3 marks, 1 tackle. Now, surely, if you're going to be playing the more aggressive small forward role, you need to lay more than 1 tackle. Seriously,
correct.
You need to lay more.
That's what disappoints me about him. He's an opportunist when he's got the opportunity, when his eyes light up and sees the ball there ready to be grabbed and have a quick snap for goal. But when it comes time to doing all the real hard things, I don't see him doing that very often at all.
No.
Anyway, I dare say he'll probably keep his spot in the side because he's done more this week than he did last week. And last week he kept his spot in the side after doing very little against these old side, the Gold Coast. But anyway, yes, good point, Lana. Not many of our players did much after halftime. Yes, that's true. But I think there was some. I'd actually like to give a shout out to a couple of players who often get a bit of the raw treatment from the Carlton supporters, but I think they actually played very well yesterday. And I'm speaking of Matthew Cottrell, who I thought probably had his best game ever for Carlton yesterday. 22 possessions, which included 8 marks and laid 4 tackles.
Yep.
And the other one's Jack Nunes, who got 18 possessions. He kicked a point, which probably could have been a goal. It was that screw around his left shoulder. He had it on the boundary line and he went for that hook kick, which he hooked it around too far. But I think that might have been in the first quarter too. But, I mean, I thought he had a reasonable game as well. And I don't think you can possibly drop those 2 guys on yesterday's performance.
No, not at all. I agree with Cottrell. He runs all day, which is what we need in case some players have their energy drop. He will go all day.
Yeah.
He'll go all
day.
And
in fairness, the selection committee have rewarded players who have played well in the VFL. those two guys, Nunes and Cottrell, were considered the two best players on the ground in the VFL win that Carlton had over the Gold Coast last week, which, by the way, was called for the VFL by our good friend Paul Sebastiani from the Jumper Punch. He did a fantastic job. I happened to watch that, so well done, Paul. He called the game very, very well indeed. But I think Cottrell and Nunes really were deserving of their elevation into the senior team, and the selection committee did that. And they, in fact, dropped 5 players from the senior team the week before that lost to Gold Coast. And that shows me that they're prepared to make hard decisions. They're prepared to penalise players that have not done what they're meant to do and not taken instructions or not performed well enough. I thought Jack Martin was very, very lucky to survive last week's culling of 5 players. I thought he should have been another one. But anyway, he took his opportunity early to kick a couple of goals. But I just didn't feel he did enough after that. He just goes missing for big chunks of time in the matches. And anyway, but those two guys, Cottrell and Nunes, I thought well and truly deserve their spot in the side next week.
No, I'm in agreement. Like I said, Cottrell will just run all day. He's got a tank. He'll give you a run. He might not always use the ball properly, but that doesn't matter. He's always going to give you. He's always going to give you effort, and it's something that we Carlton fans look for. And whether you're doing it in the 2s or whether you're doing it in the 1s, that's all we ask. That's all we ask for, and that's all we need of you. Now, there's one more. There's one player I'm going to give you that should be getting the kudos as well. That has been a bit of a whipping boy for us in the last little while. But he's been.
That was the term I was thinking of before that I couldn't think of. The whipping boys of the Carlton fans. Yep.
That's right. But he's actually turned his form around in the last few weeks, and that is Matthew Kennedy, number 10.
Yep. He had a pretty quiet game last week against Gold Coast, but he'd really performed well in the first 3 weeks. So he probably had a lot of credits in the bank that he could cash in for last week's quiet performance. But I thought he did a lot better yesterday. Yes, I agree.
So 20 touches, 14 of them handballs again, but you know what? That doesn't matter. Usually one of the guys roving around pit net to lay the pressure on. So that's perfect.
It seems to be reflective of our game plan, though, Beachy, that we've got all these midfielders who are getting at least 2/3 of their possessions as handballs, because I think what Michael Voss is doing with our team is he's converting the game plan from what used to be a very predominant kicking style of game plan to one that revolves a lot more around moving the ball by hand. And he's almost trying to implement a Port Adelaide style game plan into Carlton. It's obviously something he's picked up in his years over there under Ken Hinkley. And I think he's trying to get that to happen within our team and to get the guys to back each other up and hand pass to each other as they forge a path through the corridor.
Yes. And, of course, Lana here has piped up talking about everybody's favourite son, Jack Silvani.
Yes, of course. Yes, well, again, Jack, one thing you know with Jack is that whether he has a great game or not, he's always out there giving his all. He's always putting in 100%. You can just see the effort in everything he does. He chases, he tackles, he harasses, he smothers, he shepherds. He does all of those things that what David Park and our wonderful coach of the 20th century used to say was the 1%ers. He really is very good at doing all of those sorts of things. And I'm sure his father, Stephen, would be encouraging him to keep doing that sort of thing and that will help him retain his spot in the team. And I think that's a fair point, because if he wasn't doing those things, at times you could probably question whether he's doing enough to keep his spot in the side. But he's one of those players in the forward line that really helps to keep the ball in there, and he puts a lot of forward pressure on. And I think he's done himself proud, and let's hope he continues with his good form.
Exactly, and his late grandfather Serge would just be looking down on him proudly as well. Just
absolutely, no
seeing
doubt.
that number one flying around for Carlton.
One other player I'd like to talk about, mainly because of the position that he has, is our ruckman, Mark Pitnet. And I thought there was a big difference between what we had last week. We had De Conning up in the ruck against Jared Witts, and I thought Witts really took him apart. And that's one of the reasons why De Conning was dropped, I think. He just did not do enough. He got badly beaten last week against Gold Coast. Silvani was there to back him up, but really it was reliant on De Conning, and I think they felt that they had to make a statement there and to make De Conning go back to the VFL and get some confidence back there. They've brought in Pitnet, and it was almost like a complete replica. Sorry, not replica. I should say the other way. A complete turnaround from last week, where the ruck was a weakness last week for us. It was a big strength for us yesterday. I think Pitnet did pretty well. Mind you, the young Port Adelaide ruckman on debut, I think he did okay, but I thought that we had the better of the ruck and better of the clearances throughout the day.
We did. And, I'm just keeping my eye on Tom De Conning as well, because he did play in the twos yesterday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we here?
Did they get up, by the way? I haven't even checked the VFL score.
No, they didn't. They didn't get up.
They got beaten for the first time this year.
They got done by Richmond.
How much by?
11.
And that was at Icon Park too, wasn't it?
Yep. 11-6-72 to 15-7-97. So 15 points.
Would you believe 25?
Well, yeah. It was still a defeat.
Yeah. 4 goals, 25 points. 97 to 72, is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, 25 points. Well, so no word on how De Conning went yesterday?
Well, he kicked a goal, which I guess is important. I'm just going to get this player stats for you now. Tom De Conning.
Do you think he's better in the ruck or to be used as a key position forward?
You know what? I'm not sure. He's probably a ruck, but then again, is he another key forward that is preferred from out far, or are we going to keep relying on Harry Mackay to do the job with Charlie Kerner?
Yeah.
So his stats, Tom De Conning's stats: 15 disposals, 10 of them were kicks, 2 handballs. There's 2 marks and 5 handballs. 4 tackles with 12 hitouts as well.
12 hitouts is not a lot.
No.
I wonder who he was up against. Who? Ivan Soldo or someone like that, was he?
Yes, Soldo. There's your answer. 41 hitouts. He got spanked.
I don't think he's going back into the Carlton team on if the ruck position's anything to worry about. I think they're probably going to use just Pitnet in the ruck with the support of Silvani until De Conning really gets some form up in the VFL.
Which might.
I can't see him coming back in the team anytime soon.
No.
There's a little bit of a concern, I think. I think he probably needs to build up his upper body as well. I think he's still looking a bit light up top, especially in the upper body for a ruckman. Whereas Pitnet's a far more, I guess, seasoned ruckman, got a good, strong body. You can rely on him to compete with anyone in the ruck, really. He's no star, but he's very solid and very dependable.
Exactly.
All right, Chris. Well, that, I guess, is a pretty good summary of what happened yesterday between Carlton and Port Adelaide. I thought we were very lucky to get over the line, but at the same time, we found a way. You know, they got within 3 points and really threatened, and then we kicked the goal. We've managed to find a way to kick that all-important goal, and then they kicked another one, but they just weren't good enough to get that extra one to get them in front. They just couldn't put their noses in front. So I guess it's like a Melbourne Cup, isn't it? You know, it doesn't matter whether you win by a nostril or whether you win by the length of the straight. So long as you win, that's what gets you the 4 points.
And some would say, Vince, you've got to stay the distance if you're going to do it in the Melbourne Cup.
Exactly right.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's absolutely right, Chris. All right, I think we've dissected the game to a large extent. Against Fremantle, what do you think we're going to need to do against them? They were very impressive against Essendon yesterday. My goodness, I thought after half time they just took Essendon apart. They sort of had a bit of a lapse towards the end of the last quarter, but they'd pretty much, put the cue in the rack, and I think Essendon might have got a few late ones, but really Fremantle were very impressive. Away from home too, at Marvel Stadium.
That's what makes this more impressive, because Fremantle usually have not travelled well on the road in years gone by. That said, Essendon, I have no idea what's going on with them. They just managed to make finals last year under a new coach. They got beaten by the Dogs in Tasmania. But then again, how can you decipher what's going to happen this week? I mean, Taberner kicked seven straight against Essendon. And Sean
Big
Darcy,
game. That was a record performance from him. I don't think he's ever scored that many before.
No, exactly. And Sean Darcy, who last time he played against us, got the 3 Brownlow votes. So
he's a good now. There's a good young ruckman, Sean Darcy.
Yeah, so
and he goes forward when he's resting. He goes forward and takes marks and kicks goals.
Yeah, exactly. So our battle has to start there. It has to start there. You've got to stop it at Darcy, because then if you don't stop Darcy, similarly, the likes of your Sarongs, Switkowskis, and Taberners are going to kill you.
Yeah. Well, the one player I was really impressed by yesterday was young Brayshaw, number 8. I thought he was fantastic as a midfielder. This is the brother of the Melbourne player, Angus Brayshaw. Yes. This is Andrew Brayshaw.
Yes, this is the Brayshaw
34 possessions. Yeah. 34 possessions, of which, there's a far better balance between kicks and hand passes. So he's gaining a lot of meterage for his team. 5 marks, 4 tackles, just a brilliant game of football. Kicked a beautiful goal on the run from about 55 metres out. And, I can't speak highly enough of young Andrew Brayshaw. Caleb Sarong, another one, 30 possessions. Great game. Darcy, you mentioned, not only did he get his 23 hit-outs, but he got 18 possessions, 9 kicks and 9 hand passes, took 5 marks and kicked 2 goals. Taberner, a record high 7 goals from only 10 kicks. Brilliant performance. So they have got a lot of talent, and their defence has held up really well yesterday. They've kept Essendon to under 60 points for the game. So, Mundy's still in good touch. I think how old is he now? 75? David Mundy's
he's
probably about 36 or something, isn't he? He'd have to be 36, wouldn't he? He's still going strong. Rory Lobb, Travis Collier, the ex-Essendon player, had a really good game against his old side. They're in really good form. So we are going to really need to be... we're really going to need to be on our mettle come the weekend, and really going to have to bring our A-grade game. Otherwise, they could tear us apart up there. Yes, look, I think we can. I think we can rise to the challenge. It'll be a really good game to watch next Saturday night.
Yep.
Now, the ladder. It's interesting, isn't it, Chris?
Absolutely.
We've got Melbourne, the only undefeated team last year's premiers. And how good do they look? I mean, really.
Oh.
How good do they look? You know, the
Good
other
luck
night when I
beating
watched
them.
them play against, did they beat?
Hang on, they beat.
GWS.
Yeah,
They
GWS.
absolutely
They
took them apart. They took them apart. You know, they won by 67 points. It just looked so easy.
Yeah.
At times.
Exactly.
Even Cozzy Pickett, you know, probably kicked one of the goals of the year, where he kicked it forward. He went for a real big run and then kicked it to one of his mates and it came off the pack, and he roved it off the pack, and he still kept running and then kicked the long 45-metre goal. It was a fantastic goal.
Now, he's from a good football family, Cozzy Pickett, the nephew of Byron.
Yes. Well, he never took a backward step, did he?
No, he didn't. He went.
But Melbourne are just sailing along in front. But mind you, I've seen teams do this before and then fall at the final hurdle because all of a sudden they start getting injuries at the wrong time of the year, or they start losing form at some point. Now, it's great to get off to a good start and you're banking those wins, which is important. And it almost helps you to sort of manage your list of players a lot better because you can start to rest a couple here and there if you think you need to. But they wouldn't want to flirt with their form. But more importantly, it's all about who's flying at the right time of the year come September. Lana, watching the D's plays like going to listen to the what?
Melbourne Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, MSO. Yes, well, I've got to agree with you there, Lana. It is poetry in motion at times, watching Melbourne play. And I suppose good luck to them. They haven't had much success over the last 60 years. But they finally won a premiership last year, and they're certainly doing everything they can to go back-to-back this year, that's for sure. But then there's 5 teams on 4 wins and 1 loss. And those teams are Fremantle in second position with a whopping big percentage of 141.7. Mind you, Melbourne on top of that is 155.9. That's clearly the highest percentage. But those teams that are on 4 wins, Fremantle with 141.7, Brisbane next on 138, St Kilda in the top 4 with 132.3. Hasn't Brett Ratton got them humming again?
Yes, he has.
Sydney is 5th, also on 4 wins. They're travelling along beautifully, 130.3. And then Carlton, the last of those 5 teams, also with 4 wins and only 1 loss. But Chris, look at our percentage, 102.6. That's 127.7. Sorry, I'll start again. That's 27.7% less than the team above us, Sydney.
Yeah.
Now, we're basically just getting over the line in a couple of games, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're not belting anyone. I think the biggest win we've had so far this year was what, 25 points against Richmond?
Yep, it was.
What did we beat the Bulldogs by? Do you remember?
2 goals, 12 points.
Yeah, 12 points. And then Hawthorn by 1. Now Port Adelaide by 3.
By 3.
And last week we lost to the Gold Coast by 30. I think it was 92 to 62.
Yep.
So that's one of the reasons why we're only on 102.7.
Yep.
And then after that, what do we got?
Geelong in 7th, 110.9 on 12 points. Hawthorn, 12 points on 106.3%. And it's an honourable mention to the game that they played today at the MCG.
That was an amazing result that last quarter, wasn't it? I thought when Geelong got in front in that third quarter, I thought, that's it. Hawthorn's gone here. You know, Geelong's just, you can just feel that wave of momentum. As soon as they put their nose in front, they got another goal about a minute later. I think Jeremy Cameron might have got it after young Stengel put Geelong in front. And then that was the last goal they kicked in the third quarter. All of a sudden,
they couldn't get one.
Hawthorn found a way to kick 4 goals to nothing in the last. How did that happen?
Yeah, exactly.
So that means that the 7th and 8th teams on the ladder at the moment, just inside the 8, are those 2 teams, Geelong and Hawthorn. Geelong with a percentage of 110.9. Hawthorn with a percentage of 106.3, but they are only on 3 wins and 2 losses underneath Carlton. Then outside the 8, you've got another 5 teams all on 2 wins and 3 losses. So we've got Collingwood, Western Bulldogs, Richmond, Gold Coast and Adelaide, who had a really good win, I thought, on the weekend.
Yes.
When they beat Richmond over at home. At Adelaide Oval. And then you've got the 4 teams on 1 win, which is GWS in 14th position. 1 win from 5 games. There's not a lot. They made the 8 last year. Essendon, who also made the 8 last year, they're only on 1 win and 4 losses. West Coast, who only just failed to make the 8. They were in 9th position last year. They're also only on 1 win and 4 losses. And then, of course, you've got last year's Wooden Spooners, North Melbourne, on 1 win and 4 losses. And the team that finished second on the ladder after the home and away season and made it all the way to a preliminary final last year, Port Adelaide. Who would have thought? 5 games, 0 wins and 5 losses.
Pressure's on in Port Adelaide. The pressure is on.
They would have been really disappointed to have not quite gotten over the line against us yesterday. I think once they got that momentum up and they got within a few points with, at least 4 or 5 minutes to go, they would have fancied themselves to get over us.
Exactly. And you could say they were a little bit unlucky not to win the showdown, but for the exception of
they were unlucky. But again, you make your own luck to some extent. They let Adelaide into the game.
They did.
In that showdown.
And that's themselves to blame. That's themselves to blame completely.
And again, even yesterday's loss to us, they can look at the first half and say, well, how can we expect to give a side 49, 50-point lead at half time and expect to win? Now, we gave it a good shake and we almost got there. But if we keep giving sides a 50-point head start after the first half, how many games do we expect to win?
Exactly.
You can't expect to win any. In fact, if they hadn't got up yesterday, it would have been a record comeback win for Port Adelaide in their history.
Yep.
So they didn't quite get there.
No,
anyway, so it's a very interesting ladder. A lot of teams on 4 wins and 1 loss, and a lot of teams on 2 wins and 3 losses, and a lot of teams on 1 win and 4 losses, which make up basically the majority of the ladder underneath the top 8. So really, with the exception of Melbourne and Port Adelaide, were the only teams, at the top and tail of the ladder. They're the only teams that have either won all 5 or lost all 5. Everyone else has had a mixture.
Yep.
Now, next week's games, just quickly, Chris, we still haven't seen Steve come on yet, have we?
No, he's not in the waiting room at the moment, but I'm keeping my eye on it.
Well, let's just quickly go through next week's matches, and we'll get your predictions, shall we?
Sure.
I know we haven't got teams yet, obviously, and we don't know what the injury list is like or anything like that, but just purely based on your gut feeling at this stage, we won't hold you to it, but what are your feelings about next Friday night's games, GWS versus St Kilda at Manuka Oval in Canberra? Must-win match, you'd think, for GWS, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would agree to that. And look, I haven't seen the weather for Canberra up there yet, but if I know Canberra...
Usually cold. Usually very cold.
I was just going to say, you might want to bring a beanie, you might want to bring a scarf, and you might want to bring a parka.
I reckon it'll be pretty chilly if it's a Friday night.
Yeah, and snowing if you're not careful.
Who can forget when Alistair Clarkson went out onto the ground with nothing on that day? And Hawthorn beat GWS that night, against all odds.
I don't know how that would have happened.
I think that was him just trying to tell his players, don't worry about the cold. There's nothing to worry about. Look, I can get out here with nothing on.
I don't know how
you can do it. And they did do it. It was brilliant bit of coaching, I thought.
Yes, exactly. Now, my early tip, I would think, is St Kilda. Their form last week looked very, very good. The fact that they had Ratton in isolation, of course, because he was part of this health and safety protocol. Max King looks like he's going to fire, and he's well supported by Butler, by Higgins, and the like.
Yep.
So I would expect St Kilda to do the job there. That said, GWS should be getting Toby Green back almost. So that may fire them up, GWS, but I'm going to say St Kilda.
Okay, by roughly how many goals?
This is probably a 3-goal game, I reckon.
3 goals.
St
Kilda by 3. Well, I think I'm actually going to go for an upset here. They've been up for a while, the Saints. They lost their first game, which was a bit of a surprise to Collingwood. I think they lost that something like 85 to 102 or something like that from memory. But they've won their last 4, and I reckon they're due for another slip up, and I reckon this is the game. I think GWS will be absolutely desperate. If they lose this game, they can say goodbye to the finals, if you ask me. They generally play well at Canberra. So I'm going to go for an upset here. I'm going to say GWS by 2 goals. There you go.
Okay. All right. So we're in the ballpark as each other. Okay.
Yep. All right. Then the following day on the Saturday, just another indication that it's starting to get colder. The first game's at Mars Stadium in Ballarat between the Western Bulldogs and the Adelaide Crows. I think they're trying to get a ground that's sort of halfway between where Footscray is and where Adelaide is. It's not quite halfway, but anyway.
No, it's not. But a lot of people
Western Bulldogs home game.
A lot of people from Adelaide have been known to use Ballarat as a halfway point.
Absolutely. No, I think a lot of Adelaide people will quite happily take the trek across through Bordertown and along the Western Highway, and eventually go through Horsham and Stawell and Ararat, and eventually to Ballarat, and come along and have a look at this game. Yeah. And it'll be a good game too, I reckon, because the Adelaide Crows found a bit of form last week against Richmond.
Yes, they did.
What are your feelings here? Who do you think will win?
Bulldogs are coming off a big one against North Melbourne on a Good Friday.
Yes, they did.
Done okay at Ballarat, and the bookies have the Dogs' favourite. But Tex Walker being back for the Crows, that's done something to the Crows, and I reckon this might do something to them at Ballarat as well. So I reckon we're looking at an Adelaide win by 3 goals here as well.
Interesting, very interesting. Look, I think that the doggies would want to get over the line here. I mean, if they drop games like this, their chances of making finals are almost forlorn. They're sitting on 2 wins and 3 losses. I don't think they can afford to drop games like this. They could very well drop it, but I'm going to back them at Ballarat to win this against Adelaide. And I'll back them to win by 3 goals.
Okay.
Yeah, just too important to drop. And they did strike a good vein of form against North Melbourne. I think they'll give them some confidence. I think they won by 68 points. It was a very comprehensive win against North Melbourne. The next game, interesting one here at the Adelaide Oval. Yeah. Port Adelaide, who sit at the bottom of the ladder on 0-5, literally hanging on the edge of a cliff in terms of their finals chances here. Another loss would surely be, curtains for them. They host the West Coast Eagles at the Adelaide Oval. I'll never forget going to the Adelaide Oval 5 years ago for the first final between these two teams.
No way.
And that was the one that finished tied after full time, and they had to play extra time. And really, Port Adelaide should have won the game. But anyway, in the end, Luke Shuey gets a free kick with seconds to go, and then the siren goes, and he kicks it after the siren, after they were behind by a handful of points, and he got them over the line, and West Coast Eagles broke Port Adelaide's hearts. I'll never forget it. And here they are again. They've developed a bit of a rivalry because of that finals result. That was 5 years ago. And now we've got Port Adelaide, as I said, hanging on the edge of the cliff. And West Coast not travelling all that well. They lost again on the weekend at home to the Sydney Swans, wasn't it?
Yes, they did.
And on Friday night. And I thought, I actually predicted at the start of the year that West Coast would probably be near the bottom of the ladder. I just think that they're an ageing list. They're not really making up for the players that are getting a bit old and injured, and they're not replacing them with other players that are doing well enough. Kennedy and Darling are still, the two key position players, and while Kennedy is just a marvel, I think that they need to look to get the Oscar Allens and that sort of player into that team to start taking his place. Players like Shannon Hearn, Luke Shuey, I think they're getting on a bit now. And, even Tim Kelly, since he left Geelong and went to West Coast, I don't think he's really turned it on that well.
No.
I just don't think West. I actually think Port Adelaide will win this game. My prediction is Port Adelaide by a fairly comfortable margin. I'm going to tip them to win by 6 goals.
Okay, that's a very big call.
And, that's a big call, I know. But I just think that they should get a lot of confidence out of the way they came back in the second half yesterday against us and take that form into the game against West Coast, knowing that West Coast is a bit like a prize fighter whose days are well and truly behind him and still boxing away, but his best days are behind him. That sort of a boxer, and I think that's what West Coast reminds me of. A once great side about 4 years ago that has essentially lost its mojo. Yeah, they're on the downhill slide, and if Adam Simpson's not careful, he better be careful.
As well.
He might be in trouble too. He'd be wanting to start playing a lot of young players and saying, right, we need to rebuild.
Yeah. All right. So
what do you think? What do you think of that game, Port Adelaide, West Coast?
I'm inclining to agree. If Port Adelaide don't win their cities, curtains for them. Otherwise, they have to pretty much do what Sydney did in 2017 to pretty much even do it.
Yeah.
Hang on. Just before I give you that, Steve just rocked up. I'll just get him in.
Okay.
Okay. So
here he is.
So
the great man himself. He's with us. He's obviously holding up his mobile phone because he's moving around. How are you, Steve?
Good, Vince. How are you?
Good, mate. We're just going over our predictions for next week's game, so we'll finish doing that, Beachy, and then we'll get Steve. We'll get Steve back on. But it's good to see you, mate.
Likewise.
Yep.
All right. So the next game, Chris.
So I'm inclined to agree. Port Adelaide v West Coast.
Oh, sorry, we're talking about Port Adelaide, West Coast. Your prediction?
So, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think Port Adelaide will win this, but either way, if either of them make a bad step one way or another, it's curtains for either of them. Port Adelaide have the confidence to win at home this week, but West Coast are not looking great. You mentioned the Luke Shuey after the siren. You forgot there's also, this wasn't the final, but Jeremy McGovern also broke Port Adelaide hearts.
Yes.
Port Adelaide as well.
Yes.
That said, I'm going to give you the ballpark as well. I'd say this is 5 goals to Port Adelaide.
Okay. I think I've done a good selling job on you there, Chris. All right. It'll actually be interesting to see what sort of betting is. Yeah, we'll see. Look, I just looked up the betting on this game. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to go betting.
Get responsibly.
It's interesting to see who's favoured with the bookmakers. Port Adelaide's odds are $1.42 and West Coast is $2.89. So there you go. Now, I did not know that before I made my prediction. I can assure you of that. So interesting. Interesting betting on that particular game.
All right, the next one's us.
So even the bookmakers agree with me. Next one is us. Fremantle Dockers versus Carlton on the Saturday night at Optus Stadium. What do you think? Fremantle's odds are $1.68 and Carlton's $2.20. There you go. So Fremantle will start a warm favourite.
and it's probably deserved considering what they did to Essendon, to be honest. The
Mind you,
heart,
form doesn't always transfer from one week to the next.
no, it doesn't. The heart is saying us. The head, I honestly don't know. Fremantle at home, but it's like I said before, we've won our last 4 against Fremantle, and they're looking to break that, to buck that team. You know, you were calling Port Adelaide and West Coast a bit of a rivalry. This game could be pretty much causing a bit of a rivalry as well with us and the Dockers. For some reason, whether we played the SA
We've had a lot of
side,
close results against them, haven't we? I mean, we had that result where Mark Murphy kicked the goal with less than 30 seconds to go to put us in front. That was back in 2019, and then I think the year after that was the 2020 game when it was in COVID times, and Jack Nunes kicked that goal from the fourth row over the boundary line, just about. That's what it looked like. And he kicked that goal after the siren to win the game in what was absolutely pathetic game of football. I think it was 5 goals to 4 at the end.
it was 5.
And then, of course, you know, last year we had 2 games against Fremantle and we played them both in Victoria, one at the MCG and one at the Marvel Stadium in the end. They played their home game at the MCG, but we won them both. So we've actually got the wood on them a little bit. We've won our last 4 games against Freo.
Yeah. So the heart says us. The head, I reckon, is just telling me it's us as well. I reckon it's going to be close again because we've usually produced a close game with them in Perth. Much like we've produced a good one with the close one with the SA sides as well in recent times. I'm going to say this one's probably a 1-goal game to us.
Well, Chris, seeing you've described it in those terms, I just can't help but repeat similar things to what you just said, and with my prediction. My head says Fremantle. My heart says Carlton. My kidney says Fremantle. My liver says Carlton. My large intestine says Fremantle. My small intestine says Carlton. So it's all going to come down to what my arsehole says. So let me assure you, it's going to be a tight one, ladies and gentlemen.
It is.
Oh, dear. Anyway, no, I think Carlton and another cliffhanger next week. I can't see it being another. I seriously, I can see it being another cliffhanger, another less than 1-goal result. I think that's how close it can be next week. Let's move on because Steve's now waiting, so we'll move on with these quickly. On the Sunday, North Melbourne needing to really turn their form around against Geelong at Blundstone Arena in Hobart. Another fairly cold location, you would have thought, but at least it's on a Sunday afternoon.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I'll be quick about this. I did the North Melbourne Carlton game in Tasmania in Hobart, and that was brutal. That was brutal.
Yes.
So my tip there.
I remember that well.
I'm going to say Geelong, 4 goals.
Yeah, Geelong will be smarting after today's loss to Hawthorn. I think Geelong comfortably down there. Metricon Stadium, Gold Coast, after defeating us last week, came back to earth this week. And they are playing the Brisbane Lions in a Q clash at Metricon Stadium. So who do you like there?
I'm pretty confident this is going to be a Brisbane. This will be 4 goals.
Brisbane by 4 goals. Yeah, I think it'll be. I think it'll be closer than what a lot of people think, but I do expect Brisbane to eventually pull away. I think that's about the right margin. 4 goals.
Yep.
Now, Anzac Day Eve, the traditional clash now between Richmond and Melbourne. Now, this should be a bottler. The 2 teams who have won between them 4 out of the last 5 premierships. with Richmond having won 3 of them in 2017, 2019 and 2020, and then last year Melbourne 2021. So it should be a good game. I guess the team whose dynasty seems to have come to an end, battling for pride, currently 2 wins and 3 losses on the ladder, up against the undefeated Demons, who have risen to the top and are undisputed champion at the moment.
Yep.
What do you like? Or who do you like?
Melbourne. It's Melbourne. It's Melbourne. I honestly don't know the margin because you just don't know what you just don't know how much the Demons.
Can I make a statement? Unless Richmond has Dustin Martin come back this week,
forget it.
I just can't see them beating Melbourne. I really can't.
Yeah,
the only way that they can beat Melbourne is if they have someone like Dusty in there having an impact, because I just don't think they have the cattle anymore. They just don't have enough players in form having an impact on games for 4 quarters. They can do it for one or 2 quarters, but I can't see Richmond having enough firepower to beat Melbourne. Melbourne's just like a well-oiled machine right now, and they can just put the pedal to the metal when they decide to and just go bang. Yep. All right, Melbourne by, again, if Dusty Martin doesn't play, I'm going to choose Melbourne by 6 goals.
Yep, no worries.
Hawthorn. Now, this is the second of the 2 games on Anzac Day today. When I say the second, I always look at the Essendon Collingwood game as being the main event. But if you like, the dress rehearsal to the big one is Hawthorn versus the Sydney Swans at the University of Tasmania Stadium in Launceston, which used to be called Aurora Stadium, I think, didn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's now called UTAS Stadium in Launceston. It's the same stadium, so don't worry. Great win by Hawthorn today. They'll be going in with a lot of confidence up against a proven side who, again, are right up there on, in the top 4. Sydney Swans, top 5, I think they might be at the moment. It'll be interesting to see what the bookmakers say about this. Hawthorn is, in fact, what is it? I'm just waiting for it to come up. I would suggest that Sydney will be the favourite, but not by much. What do you think?
I'll have it here for you. Sportsbet are offering $2.31 on Hawthorn.
Yeah.
And Sportsbet are offering $1.62 on the Swans.
That's it. $2.31 for Hawthorn, $1.62 for Sydney. So similar odds to the Fremantle-Carlton game. Hawthorn played so well against Geelong today. If they go down there with that sort of form, they could give this a bit of a shake. And again, I'm not sure whether Buddy will be playing or not. He didn't play last week. Didn't seem to bother Sydney. They still won the game quite comfortably. Yeah. So what do you reckon? They're going from Perth one week to Tasmania the next, the Sydney Swans. Bit of a road trip.
A short stay in home. A short stay in Sydney. So
correct.
Hawthorn have usually done well in Tasmania in recent years. They've made it a mini fortress, so to speak, down there.
Yep.
But Sydney's form, I reckon, will be just too strong. But Hawthorn, I reckon, will give it a good shake. This, I think, is a 2-goal game to Sydney.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I don't underestimate Hawthorn ever. And down there, they tend to play really well. But I'm going to just suggest Sydney just. They've got a lot of players that they can rely on who do keep performing week in, week out. I'm talking about guys like Isaac Heaney, Luke Parker, etc., Josh Kennedy. They are just stalwarts for Sydney, and they always come up when they have to. Dane Rampy, another one. And I just think that they'll just get over the line. But it wouldn't surprise me if Hawthorn knock them off, I should say. And the last one, Beachy, let's try and sum it up quickly because we've got Steve waiting in the background, is the big game 3:20 on Anzac Day. What a fantastic tradition it is. I have no issue with Collingwood and Essendon playing this game every year.
Yep.
It really is a spectacle. If you've ever been to an Anzac Day clash between these two teams, and I've been to a few now, you'll appreciate just how special this fixture is, and the playing of the last post, along with all of the other ceremonial things that happen before the ball is bounced, makes it a really special day.
Yep.
So who do you think? Collingwood and Essendon? Collingwood on 2 wins, Essendon on 1 after 5 rounds. Who would have thought?
I'm going Collingwood. They've been led by a very good coach in Craig McRae, who has track records. I reckon he'll get these boys fired up to win.
Okay. Fair enough. It's one of these matches where it almost doesn't matter what positions they are on the ladder, these two. They always put up a fantastic performance between the two of them.
Exactly.
I hear where you're coming from, and I think you make a lot of good points, but my gut feeling tells me Essendon's going to get up. I don't know why. I think Stringer will come back. I think that'll make a very big difference. And, Collingwood's still a young, developing side. The big stage might be a bit much for some of their players. I think Collingwood will go in favourite, but I've just got a feeling Essendon might just be stung after yesterday's big loss to Fremantle, and I think there'll be a bit of urgency about them this week, and I think Ben Rutten might be putting the firecracker up a few of them during the week, and I think Essendon will come out humming.
That's a very good point, because Anzac Day usually has its own script.
And again, I'd have to say to you, if they lose this one, geez, their finals chances are starting to look really, really forlorn, because they'll be at 1 win and 5 losses after 6 rounds if they lose to Collingwood.
Yes.
And from that position, it's hard to see them making the finals. So really their finals chances hinge on winning this game.
Yep, that is fair. That is fair. I understand completely. But like I said, the Anzac Day usually has its own script, and our tips pretty much don't even matter by this point.
Indeed. Well, Beachy, again, thanks very much, mate. We'll let you continue to control the show from the backstage and from the back room. We've got Steve ready to go, I believe, to come on and talk about a few other things outside of the game.
There you go.
We've got him. There he is. Good to see you, Stephen.
Likewise, Vince.
Thank you for joining us. I know you had commitments tonight that prevented you from coming on at the start of the show, but we'll happily continue for a little while longer while we... Have you got me?
Yep, I've got you.
I don't know if you've got me. I just received a phone call. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, guys?
Got you. Yep.
No, I can't hear you. I'll have to come back.
That's all right.
I'll come back.
That's all good. All good. Okay. So, Steve, we were just talking about the games ahead. We've already touched on the game that took place yesterday, but I'll get your thoughts on that just quickly while we wait for Vince to come back. What did you reckon?
Oh, look, certainly worrying signs for us with the, all good to play free-flowing football in the first sort of half of a game, but really worrying signs. I know there was a lot of positivity about the fact that we'd come out with a win, but much like the Hawthorn game for mine, it's a bit concerning. That being said, we're in a very good position at, 4-1 at the moment, but that sort of football probably wouldn't stack up against better sides. And I think that that element of consistency and pressure is going to be required. Otherwise, although Carlton's improved, we're not going to fulfil the potential that we've shown in parts of games this year.
No, that's fair. I mean, it might not stack up against someone like an undefeated Melbourne side even though we won't have them much later until the season. But even so, sooner or later, our luck is going to run out.
Absolutely, it's pure luck. As great it is to get the result, it's pure luck that we've held on, and other teams haven't run over us. But look, you need a bit of luck. We probably didn't have that luck last year. We've had it this year. We need to make the most of it and create, not rely on luck, but now use that as an advantage and, take the luck we've had, but then control our own destiny. Our percentage is still pretty low, so that's also another challenge.
Yes.
But I think we're thinking about ourselves as a top 8 team now in our mindset. So if that's the case, we need to improve.
Yeah,
Sorry about that, gents.
No, not a problem.
I had an unanticipated phone call, and I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb earlier. So hopefully I won't get any more.
That's
but thank God you didn't go anywhere, Beachy, and you were able to chat to Steve while I was gone there for a couple of minutes.
No, I was just getting Steve's thoughts on the game against Port Adelaide.
Yeah, well, I assume you saw the game, Steve, or at least most of it.
Yeah.
So, what did you make of it, just quickly? Because I didn't hear your thoughts.
I was just saying. So, if we think we're a top out team, it was probably a poor performance, and we need to improve. If we think that we're happy to be in the 8, it's a great result, and we won. So, how do you want to see it? Do you want to see it as a Carlton supporter that wants to make the 8, and if they do, it's like Christmas? Or do you want to see it like you're now expected to be in the 8? So if you're expected to be in the 8, you'll have different standards. So if you're expected to be in the 8, it's a poor performance. There's no question about that. There's no sugarcoating the fact that we won or we're 50 points in front. It's a poor performance against the bottom side at home. Now, if you're thinking, no, we're happy to be in the 8 and we got the win, great result, celebrate. We're in the 8, we're 4-1, we're probably going to make finals. We've got to do a lot of things wrong now to miss out. Then it's celebration time because we got another win. So, which way do you want to do?
It does depend on your perspective, doesn't it? It does really rely on how you view where we're at as a club, as a team, whether you're looking at it in comparison to last year or previous years, or whether you're looking at it in comparison to where you think we should be right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are encouraging us to sort of not be harsh on the team. I got the impression in the last 24 hours or so that a lot of people are sort of saying, hey, take it easy on Carlton. Don't be so critical. They did enough to win. Let's celebrate the fact that we won and that we got the 4 points, and, that we can move on having identified, where we need to improve. But at the same time, we still banked 4 points.
Yeah. I mean,
but then there's others who would be harsher than that, saying, no, we can't celebrate that. We should be better than that. We're playing the bottom side at home. We play as we should against the bottom side and get a 50-point lead at half time. And then we go and almost blow it in the second half and let them catch up.
We had the same conversation last week, Vince. Hawthorn, Wiedering doesn't.
You mean the week before?
Yeah, whenever it was. Yeah, sorry.
Because last week we actually lost to Gold Coast. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're referring to the Hawthorn game, aren't you?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
That was the week before that.
Yeah. So the Wiedering doesn't take a few marks. A few things don't go away. We lose to Hawthorn. What's the conversation, right? Should it be just on 1 or 2 kicks that we have these conversations, or should it be on the theme of the way we play? I don't know. Look, are we looking at it as emotional supporters or not? If we're looking at it as an emotional supporter, great win. We're 4-1. Be positive, guys. Don't be negative. If we're looking at it as actual, the Carlton of old, the Carlton I knew, that was in the pursuit of unrelenting pursuit of sustained success, or whatever the president used to say a couple of presidents ago. Well, it's probably not good enough, right?
Yes. I just noticed there was a comment there from Peter Vlahos. Good day, Peter. Good to see you joining in tonight. Katy Perry sums it up. We're hot and we're cold. Yes, that's a great song. We're very hot and cold. I mean, first half yesterday, we were scintillatingly hot, as we were against Hawthorn in that first quarter 2 weeks earlier. And then, for some reason, the heat goes out of our play. We stop doing all the things that got us to that position, and we start allowing the opposition to dictate terms. I think that's what must be the most disconcerting part about it for our coaching staff, is that our players just failed for long, long periods of time in both of those two matches to get the game back on our terms. We just did enough at the end to find a way to just scrap away and get a goal when it counted the most in both the Hawthorn game and the Port Adelaide game yesterday. So we're a bit fortunate, but sooner or later we're going to come up against an opposition like a Melbourne or a Brisbane or a Sydney Swans, and they're not going to allow us that opportunity. They're too good and too professional to not come back and then put us away. They're good enough to do both.
Vince, you won't be 50 points up in the first place, mate. That's
well, probably that. But even if we were and allowed them to come back, they wouldn't be allowing you back in. They'd be just making the most of the opportunity. And sooner or later, we're gonna pay a price for flirting with danger the way we are.
I'd rather be 2 or 3 goals up and hold the lead and not. I don't see the 50 points.
In other words, playing the game on your terms for the majority of the game.
Absolutely, yep. Controlling the ball, controlling possession. I mean, I know you can't do that in the modern game. I know momentum swings are 5 and 6 goals sometimes. That's not an excuse though to give up leads like that.
No, that's very true. And look, I guess we didn't have Patrick Cripps the week before. I think he went off at quarter time, and I think we really felt that loss last week against Gold Coast, and I think that to a large extent contributed to the loss, apart from not having Pitnet in the ruck. But also yesterday we didn't have Cripps for the entire match, and that was counteracted, I guess, by Ollie Wines not playing for them, Brownlow medalist. So, we found a way to play well without Cripps. That's the first time I've seen our midfield perform well without him. Because the week before without him, we weren't good at all. But we did, for the first half, play really well without Patrick Cripps. That was a positive that I saw. But then in the second half, again, it was like chalk and cheese, and we allowed the opposition back in. The bottom, as you say, the bottom. Now, they're the bottom side on the ladder at the moment. I doubt that they'll stay there. But I think they're better than that. But nevertheless, currently bottom of the ladder, and we should have done better. We've got a few more comments coming up. Have we, Beachy? What have we got?
Dan Williams just replying to Goz Getaway. Our fans have acted talking music. We are Queen and I want it all at the moment. Or Backstreet Boys, I want it that way. Or as Lana was just saying, as opposed to Tom Jones, it's not unusual.
Is this a music show? Is it? What songs can he come up with that sum up the Carlton performance?
So Queen.
Yes, I'll give it to. I'll give the award to Peter Vlahos at the moment for It's Hot and It's Cold from Katy Perry. But
fair enough. And then Peter Vlahos came up with this one, and this one I like as well.
Need a petition that every Carlton's member should be compensated with a free defibrillator. Yes, well, I've got to say that, at one stage in my life, I had really low blood pressure, and my doctor recommended that I start following Carlton. That'll get your blood pressure up real quick.
I like that.
Steve, I guess it's hard to look before we talk about some other issues. Just to finish up on the Carlton performance yesterday and so far this year, I guess it's encouraging, and I guess, congratulate the team and the coaching staff so far on getting us to a position of being 4-1. And it really sets up the season to be able to make the finals if we're good enough. But I just don't know what to make of us at the moment. I wonder whether we're really as good as a 4-1 team at the moment, based on our performances. We are not winning any more than 2 quarters a game. We have not had a game yet this year where we have won more than 2 quarters in that game. Now, the quarters that we've won have been good enough wins in those quarters to build up a lead in a lot of those games. Richmond, Bulldogs. Well, actually, Richmond, I think we came home strongly in the last quarter.
Yeah.
But the Bulldogs and Hawthorn and Port Adelaide, they were games where we built up a lead because we had very strong quarters, the ones that we did win. But then again, we've also lost quarters significantly enough that those margins have come back to almost zero, and we've just kept our noses in front in the end. So is Carlton really performing like a finals team? I do wonder.
Probably not, but the ladder position is such. But only time will tell, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess. Look, we should be grateful that we've got the wins because we can now work on our weaknesses to hopefully improve. But if we don't improve, if hypothetically we just do not improve, honestly, I can see a lot of those close wins that we're having now turning into close losses and eventually the title turn. We have to improve.
Yep.
There's no question that this side needs to get better at winning football matches where we win more than 2 quarters a game. Because if you're only going to win 2 quarters out of 4, there's going to be just as many games where you don't end up on the positive side of the ledger.
Absolutely.
Especially against quality opposition.
Yeah.
So, look, we're playing Fremantle next week. I think that'll be a really good test. Interstate game on, hostile territory against the side that's flying at the moment. They're second on the ladder and really performing well. Like the way they played against Essendon yesterday, that was impressive. That was mighty impressive. It's no wonder that they're going in quite warm favourites at the moment against us. But, we're the sort of team that finds a way to sometimes stop these sides in their tracks. It'll be interesting to see whether we can do that next week. After that, we have, I think it's North Melbourne on a Saturday night here. So that should be a winnable game. And then I think we play Adelaide here, which is another winnable game. But again, Adelaide, you can't take them too lightly. And then I think we have GWS over in Sydney, and they're not in very good form at the moment. So, again, you've got 3 very winnable games, although we haven't got a great success rate over it. I don't think we've even won. I don't think we've won a game yet against GWS over there, have we? No. You might want to look that up for me, Beachy, and do a bit of research. I don't think Carlton's ever beaten GWS on GWS's home turf.
We've never done it. I can tell you
and that's
that
in
right
10
now.
years.
We've never done it. We've gone to the Sydney Showground Stadium, as it's now known as Giant Stadium, 5 times.
Yeah.
And it's the same record as Port Adelaide currently. Zip
right.
and 5.
There you go. So, it's a winnable game only because they're travelling poorly. But, again, we'd have to be turning around a lot of historical failure and turn that into success all of a sudden. All right, Stephen. Moving on to more macro level discussion.
Yep, I've only got a few minutes left, Vince. I'm sorry, mate.
No, that's all right.
Get into that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. We'll cover a lot of this next week if you like, because we don't have a lot of time this week. But I wanted to quickly touch on the announcement by Gillon McLachlan that he's retiring at the end of this season as the AFL CEO. What did you make of that announcement? Quickly.
Yeah, well, look, he's obviously got another job to go to, and good luck to him for that. I think he's got high praise from his from the commercial point of view. To mine, he's a more people-friendly version of Andrew Demetrio. I think he's got the same agenda. They're cut of the same cloth, only he's the more corporate, modernised corporate type, whereas Demetrio was more the I'll rule with an iron fist type.
Yeah.
So he's become more, shall we say, 21st century style leader, and he's been liked more. What has he really achieved? I mean, he's corporatised the game even more than Demetrio. If you want to think about it off the field, I think that certainly he's brought revenue there into the game and grown that, which was obviously his agenda. Local footy's probably in no better state, if not a worse state than it was when he actually took over, and didn't really solve for the expansion clubs. I mean, I don't think they've really been resolved at all. The issues with those and the success in those, I don't think they're as successful as probably what the AFL would have liked. And I think on his scorecard, he would have not really got a tick there. But revenue is probably his main thing. That's what he was driven by. I think he's done that. I don't think he can.
Do you think the revenue is mainly the TV rights deal, or is that the vast majority of what you're talking about?
Yeah, and the gambling as well. So he's done well on the gambling and the revenue and the TV rights component. So look, big tick from the corporates from that side of things. The fans have probably had the wool pulled over their eyes because he has got such a better PR. He's so much more palatable by people, but he's probably picked their pocket and stolen from them their game without them realising it. So that's probably what's happened. Whereas Demetrio was abrasive. He upset people. He stole the game from them, and they realised he was doing it, and he was hated. He was a dictator. Whereas McLaughlin is more the modern corporate type that
he's more the velvet glove.
Yeah, absolutely. So he'll be a lot better liked. I think he's going out at the right time for him. I don't think the revenue and the TV rights, it's going to be harder to grow that, and the next deal will be a lot more difficult at the moment, especially with the current environment. So he's probably...
Well, he's still got a season to go. There's still a few things he's got to tick the boxes for, doesn't he? I mean, you've got the next TV rights deal, which apparently he's still going to be involved in, even though he's leaving.
Yep.
You've got the Tasmanian team that's being touted as something that will happen. Whether it does or not, I'm not 100% sure. But you've had Peter Gutwin, the Premier of Tasmania, resign in the last couple of weeks, and now you've got Dylan McLaughlin, the CEO of the AFL, resigning. And the two main players in that deal are both leaving the table. Does that put in jeopardy the Tasmanian team?
I wouldn't think it would, because I think the Tasmanian deal is more about the state and its economy and investment there. So I think that's probably more of it, as long as that party stays in power. And, of course, the election, they've still got a couple more years of government, so I don't think you'll have any issues there. I think you'd have some problems if you had more of a Labor-Greens alliance there than you would Tasmanian Liberal. But, look, let's not get into politics, Vince, on that. But essentially, I think from an investment into the state perspective, I think that's not an issue. I think the league needs something different, and they'll get those potentially extra game they want for the TV rights as well.
Yeah, can you see Alistair Clarkson coaching a team down there, or is it more like something Brendan Bolton will do?
Not sure, but they'll definitely throw a checkbook. They'll have a checkbook, and
they need a marquee coach more than anything else, even more than a marquee player, to be honest.
Yeah, most definitely. As we all know, developing a team from scratch is very difficult. Unless you do what the Adelaide Crows did back in '91, and you can handpick all the best players. All the best
players out of each sample team. Yeah. And try and rape and pillage a few VFL teams while you're at it. I think they got Tony McGuinness from Footscray and
John
a few names like that come to mind.
Yep.
Kim Costa from Footscray. What's his name? Darren Jarman from Hawthorn.
Yep.
Yeah. So yes, indeed. I think even Greg Anderson from Essendon went back there.
Yep. Tony
Hall from Hawthorn. Yep. So yes, you can certainly compile a pretty decent team if you've got the right cattle that you can access, I guess. Anyway, so that's a pretty good summary of the Gillon McLachlan situation.
Well, that's my summary, Vince.
Would it surprise you? Would it surprise? I've heard a couple of rumours. Now, I want to stress that there's no basis of these rumours other than purely something I've heard. Is that maybe Gillon McLachlan wasn't resigning of his own choosing and was told to resign? Would that surprise you?
Oh, probably not.
By the AFL Commission?
Probably not.
That they told him, listen, you'd better be on your bike if you want to be seen to be doing this on your own terms. He was quite emotional in that press conference, wasn't he?
Yeah. But look, that's corporate life, mate. You make hay while the sun shines, right? That's how it is. I mean, forget it's football, it's corporate life. This is the business. It's pretty cutthroat, pretty ruthless.
Yeah. Again, look, that could be absolute rubbish. I don't want to sort of add fuel to that fire, but I did hear the rumour from someone who claims to have a source that's very close in there, that maybe he was actually pushed. But anyway, I guess it doesn't really matter. What matters is that he's made the decision, and he is going to be gone by the end of this season. So I guess he leaves at the end of the grand final. At the end of the this Brownlow medal night will be his last Brownlow medal of counting names and votes, and the last one where I think it'll also see the start of the new AFLW season, though, won't it? He'll be still there when that starts.
Yep, he will be.
Because they've decided to go with this new timing for the AFLW, haven't they, where they start the season in August, essentially?
Yes, that's right.
Is that right, Beachy? Yep.
Yes.
So, and of course, you've got the 4 new teams coming in to make all 18 teams part of that AFLW competition. So you'll see Hawthorn and Essendon, as well as Port Adelaide and the Sydney Swans. So they'll join the other 14 teams, and you'll have the same 18 teams as the AFL men's competition. That'll be a bit of a challenge to get any talent through those 4 teams as well.
Yep.
And
definitely.
just on that, what did you make of the news of the exits of another 2 Carlton AFLW players to opposition clubs? Now, this time it's our triple our triple Carlton Best and Fairest winner and past AFLW Best and Fairest winner, Maddie Prasparkas, is going to the newly formed Essendon franchise. And she's bringing her good friend Georgia G along with her, and they've both decided to leave.
Yeah, well, look, firstly, for Prasparkas, I wasn't surprised. And, good luck to her. We obviously didn't have a strong enough program to keep her. Difficult. I know they're going to say they threw the checkbook at her, but we could have thrown money at her as well. But fair enough, that was her girlhood club that she supported. But other players going, it's really worrying. I think we've touched on this many times before. It's really concerning how we're struggling to keep talent. So now that they've got a lot of gaps on the list, it's about which players can we attract. Now, if we can't attract players, then that is really an indictment on the program. If we can attract players, then it says that those players just left for their reasons, and Carlton is still a destination.
Look, I can't help but feel that there's a significant trend here. You cannot ignore just how many players have left and the caliber of player that's left in recent years. I mean, you can't just dismiss this as something, other clubs are offering them more money and all.
Yeah.
Well, we could, as you quite rightly said, we can offer them money as well. I mean, we've got a salary cap the same as theirs.
There was a spin article that probably came from the club's PR department to talk about how all the clubs were being, pillaged by these new 4 clubs and justifying it. Obviously, I know where that article would have come from. It was a nice piece of Carlton propaganda. But at the end of the day, what I want to hear from the club is, what are they doing to attract,
to stem this trend?
Stem the trend, number one, and attract their players, their marquee players, in place of the ones that have left. Tell me that. Now, they're not telling you that. All they're telling you is they're blaming someone else, and that's going into victim mode. We need to be talking about how we're going to attract these players.
Well, I'll tell you who I think should be coming out and talking about exactly that. the newly appointed joint vice president, Paddy Kinnersley, who is meant to be responsible for the AFLW and VFLW programs, and yet, she's been re-elected to the board, and yet we have not heard a word from the Carlton board about the AFLW program and what we're doing about this disturbing trend where players are leaving our club.
Absolutely.
And you can write as many PR puff pieces as you like. It's not addressing that fundamental issue of why are Carlton players leaving our women's team for other clubs. I mean, the list is compelling. You've got Katie Loynes, a past captain. Brianna Davey, a past captain. Lauren Arnell, her original captain, who's now going to coach a team very shortly.
Yep.
She left after a couple of years. The Hosking twins, Jess and Sarah. You've got our former, fantastic centre half forward. What's her name, Beachy?
Harris.
Taylor Harris. Yeah, it just escaped me then. Taylor Harris, right? She left for Melbourne. The list goes on and on. Alison Downey goes to Collingwood. If all of these players were still playing for Carlton, you can't tell me that we wouldn't be making grand finals.
The good thing is
now we've got Prasparkas, probably our best ever player. Let's be honest. Considering how many best and fairest she's won with us and how many games she's won literally off her own boot for us, there's been no greater loss than Prasparkas now. So, and Georgia G's also a very, very handy forward.
So the positive there is we've got these players in the first place.
Who are we replacing them with? Nobody. No one that's making an impact.
The challenge is getting the replacements, and
but we haven't had replacements that have had anywhere near the talent, the skill, or the impact that those players had when they were playing for us. Now, don't get me wrong, no disrespect to players like I think it was Jess Good that came in this year. What's number 46's name, Beachy? I forget her. Elise O'Day. She's another one that came over from Melbourne. Yeah, they're all okay players, but they just don't have the same impact as the ones that we've lost. And, we saw that the knives were coming out for Daniel Harford at the start of this year when we dropped about 4 or 5 games in a row. And then all of a sudden he wins the last 4 games and all of a sudden he's kept his job. He's just been reappointed, for another 2 years, which probably goes to prove either one of two things. Either one, they've identified that he is not the problem and that there are other issues that are causing this exodus of players. Or two, they really don't care too much and they're quite happy to just let him continue on for a couple of years and they haven't got a replacement for him anyway and it's all too hard. You just give him another 2 years. Well, I don't know. I just think there needs to be some more answers from the club and more particularly from the director on the board who's responsible for this area.
Yeah, you won't get it.
And she should stop going on about all these social justice programs like Carlton Respects and all of this sort of stuff and start talking about the actual AFL women's program and what the club is doing and what she's doing to address these issues. Because to me, we have a cultural problem there. And that's one of the reasons why these players are leaving. And they just will not acknowledge anything or anyone who suggests that it's a cultural problem. They just deny it. And those pieces like you referred to basically confirm that. They're looking for scapegoats and looking for other people to blame.
Yep, and I'm not surprised. That's pretty much my view on that one, Vince.
Okay. So you're quite happy with Harford getting another 2 years?
I don't know. There's been no review. I mean, we don't really know. How do we know?
See, some people are suggesting that some of these players are leaving because of him or because there must be some sort of gulf in the relationship between coach and players. I don't know. That could be true, or it could be miles from the truth. None of us really know.
No, that's right.
Proof will be in the pudding next year.
It will be.
You would think?
Yeah.
It's going to be. Because the season started in August, which is going to be soon.
Well, again, look, Darcy Vescio had a good year last year, but I don't think she had a very good season this one. And we're still relying on her in the forward line. Mimi Hill came back from injury, thank goodness, because she's, to me, now our shining light in the midfield. I think she's probably one of our only A-grade players left. Abby Mackay shows a lot of promise, or Abby McKay, I think it is. Daughter of former champion Carlton player Andy McKay, but she also shows a lot of promise. But a lot of the real nucleus of the team is gone. By the way, Nicola Stevens is also touted as being someone who's looking for greener pastures. I believe she's even talking to St Kilda. So, if she ends up leaving as well, there's another goal kicker that will be gone.
And you know what, Vince? There's one other name you forgot to mention that's been a standout, and that's the captain, Harrington.
Well, yeah, she's staying, obviously, Karen Harrington. And I think she got into the All-Australian team, did she?
She did.
But, again, she's probably staying out of not only loyalty, but, the fact is she is the captain and she's got responsibility and they're looking after her and she's got a pretty good relationship with Harford from the sounds of things. But, gee, she's seeing, teammate after teammate depart. It's a very worrying trend for our women's team. But anyway... Next issue, Stephen, before we leave.
Vince, I haven't got much time, mate.
Or do you have to leave right now?
Well,
if you have to leave, we'll call it quits there if we have to leave.
We'll be real quick if that's all right.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say the email that came out from the president during the week. What do you think of that?
I don't read them. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I touch over them. I mean, they're not written by them. At the end of the day, it's the comms department that's put that out. They've got a message. They've got to probably to engage with the members every 4 to 6 weeks. I think it was all about getting crowds to come to the game. I think it was all about that. I think they would have wanted a really big crowd. I think it's about plugging the membership as well. So I think that's just all comms department, and they're saying president email cycle on the calendar to come out on these days, and it came out. It's about pushing the membership, really. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you think anything of it?
It didn't have a lot of impact on me, to be honest. It was, I guess, not something I expected to see, but it wasn't something I didn't expect to see either, if you know what I mean.
They've had 4 games.
Because of our success in the first 5 rounds, you expect the club to try and cash in, if you like,
that's right.
on that by trying to push membership and encourage attendance at games and all that sort of thing. And look, that's to be expected. I suppose any of us would do the same thing if we were in charge. But
absolutely.
But look, there's a long way to go, and yes, it's great that we've started the season with 4 wins and only 1 loss after 5 rounds. Could easily have been 2 and 3 instead of 4 and 1. But we've been fortunate, and we've got to ride our luck for as long as we can. Enjoy that luck.
I'll challenge those emails. They need to be ad-lib video messages to the member, not scripted, completely ad-libbed as much as possible. That will come across more genuine than something that's written by the comms department. Yeah. But anyway, I think that'll get more the heartstrings, pull the heartstrings.
Yeah.
That sort of email is more a, written.
Well, look, if we happen to beat Fremantle this weekend, I think that they're going to get on a real roll when it comes to membership and also attendance, because if we go in after 6 rounds and we're 5 wins and up in the top 4, because that's what will happen. We'll be overtaking Fremantle for starters because they're on 4-1 as well. So, you'll be going from 6th up to at least 4th, you would think. And I think, they'll cash in on that. And the fact that we play North Melbourne, Adelaide and GWS in the following 3 rounds, they'll see themselves as a big chance to get at least 6, if not 7 wins out of those first 8 rounds.
Yep.
And if you do happen to get 6 or 7 wins from the first 8 rounds, something would have to go horribly, horribly wrong not to play finals. So I think they will cash in as much as they can. And it'll be interesting to see what our final membership figure is when it eventually comes through at the end of June, because, they're touting, 80, 85, 90,000 members or something. What was it last year, Beachy? Do you remember? 81, wasn't it? Weren't they saying it was 81,000? So I think they're trying to reach at least 85 or 90.
Yeah,
and eventually they want 100.
Depends how they're going to measure it. And we've had this conversation, if the cats and dogs or the $1 or the $9 members and all of that are counted.
Yeah.
The attendances will probably be the true litmus test, though, where you've got 100% of crowds. That'll be the true, probably, reflection of what the true supporter base is, right? At the end of the day. Yep.
Absolutely, yep. Well, we've got 2 home matches in a row after this interstate game against Fremantle. So North Melbourne at Marvel on a Saturday night, followed by Adelaide Crows also at Marvel on a Sunday twilight fixture. So, North Melbourne hasn't got a great following in terms of numbers of members, and their attendances tend to be down. So it's going to rely a lot on Carlton people to turn up to a game like that. North's also not travelling that well, so you'd say that would be a typical 35,000 type crowd, I think. Adelaide Crows, probably similar, maybe a 30,000 crowd on a Sunday twilight. If we're really travelling, I'd expect those numbers to go up by at least 5,000 people each.
Yep, agreed.
All right, gents. If there's nothing else you'd like to mention, I'll let you off the hook there, Steve. Again, thanks very much for joining us tonight, even though it was difficult for you to set aside some time for us. No, that's all right. You don't have to apologise. Just last quick one. I can't help but do this, Beachy. I hope you don't mind. Unfortunately, Cameron Smith just couldn't quite do it at the Masters last week.
No, I know.
I was so saddened by that, but he still played a pretty good round. He only finished with a 73. I think in the end he finished 1 over for the round and finished at 5 under in equal third, which was still a very, very great achievement.
Yeah, they blame the 12th, the tee shot on the 12th. It's not that simple just to blame that. Even if he plays well, it's unlike Scheffler was probably still going to win anyway. But it would have been a lot closer margin.
Maybe. You can always sort of take it hole by hole. But I think also when you hit a shot like that and you end up having a 3 over 6 on a par 3, and you lose 3 shots in one hit, and then you lose another one on the hole after that, this is the thing, that it slows your momentum, and also you lose your confidence, and it takes you a few holes to get back to feeling confident enough to score birdies again. And he probably ran out of holes in the end. He could have maybe even caught up another hole or 2.
It's all easy from us in our living rooms, but that 12th hole,
a lot of pressure.
I've actually been there many times to physically in person. The wind gets up there in amongst the trees. You don't know. The green is extremely narrow. If you've got that slight bit of doubt in your mind, especially if you're coming in the final round, it's not that simple.
I think Cam knew as soon as he hit the tee shot, he knew it straight away. That he was going to be in the water. But look, all credit to him. He's been a tremendous soldier for us as an Australian, and he still did himself proud. I know Scheffler ended up winning, and a deserved winner. He played better golf on the final day, and a fantastic final round by Rory McIlroy to come in second after I think it was an 8 under par, 8 under 64 in the final round.
But that shot on 18.
Oh, how was that, eh? On 18, unbelievable. But I think Cameron Smith one day, if there's any justice in the world, he'll be wearing that green jacket at the end of the final round one day.
Well,
he's just too good a golfer not to be
Yeah.
right up there again. I think
Well-
he's come into the top 5 3 times in the last 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and even if it's not
Fantastic.
green jacket, he'll win a major, right? For sure.
Yeah, you'd like to think so.
Yep.
All righty. Well, let's finish off on that bit of golf. But let's hope that Carlton can go over to Perth next week and knock over the Fremantle Dockers. Rain, hail or shine. And Beachy, again, thank you so much for all your help tonight.
Thanks, Chris.
Steve, good to see you, mate. And we'll look forward to seeing all of you again next Sunday. No, actually, it'll be Monday night again next week at the end of Anzac Day. So keep a lookout for Monday night at 8 o'clock for another episode of Blue Sunday. Until then, go Blues.
Go Blues.
Go Blues.